So just came home and some good news, my dryer part has arrived. If you're unaware of what happened to the old pulley in my Electrolux dryer, this is what's left of it. And it took me a while to actually figure that out. In fact, my brother-in-law Trev figured this out, and here's a link to the video to go through that exciting story. But the new one is here, thanks to eBay and what was it, Parts Online, Appliance Parts Oz, AUS. We're going to pop this in and get the dryer drying again. Now, tool-wise, to get this particular job done, the good news is I reckon you're going to have most of these in your garage or in your home toolkit because they're very, very basic. Couple of sockets. Firstly, this is a 1/4 inch metric socket. That's for the tiny little bolts. You can try and use a spanner, you can try and use other tools, but there's really not that much of a spot or provision around some of these tiny little fasteners. So the only way I could get them off was, of course, with a socket, 1/4 inch there. And then I've got a 14mm metric socket, and that's for the big bolt at the back of the drum, which we'll get to in just a sec. Down the very bottom of the dryer, this Electrolux model, and I'm sure it goes for others as well, there is one screw. And I just use either a screwdriver or, in this case, a driver bit for the drill, which leads me to my final tool, and that, of course, is the drill itself. So there is the socket adapter that goes into the drill. The drill I'm using is this one from Ozito, Bunnings Special, $99. I love these ones. Once upon a time, Bunnings grey models were terrible. They'd run out of puff. You'd recharge it for a couple of hours and you'd get 20 minutes of use. But with these batteries, the Li-ion batteries, they just go forever. Just fantastic stuff. This one was 99 bucks a while ago. The model keeps changing, but at its base, it is an absolutely fantastic drill, one of the best I've ever had. And for light stuff around the house and DIY duties like replacing a pulley and a belt on a dryer, well, this thing is absolutely sensational. So, like I said, if you don't have the tools, borrow them from a neighbor, because there's every chance someone has these very, very common sockets and a drill, and use a drill because it'll just save so much time and angst in the long run. And the sooner you can do this, the sooner you can fix it, the sooner you can sit down and celebrate with a beer, and that's a good thing. Now, as we work through this, you'll see the dryer both standing up and lying on its front in some pictures. And it's on some soft clothes so the front door doesn't get scratched by the laundry tiles. You can work on it either way, but personally I find it lying down makes it easier to check out how things are spinning when you're moving the drum around once the belt's back on. Also, while an extra set of hands can be helpful here in holding tools and retrieving lost screws, it's certainly not essential. You can get away with doing this on your own, and if I can fix it, then you really don't have an excuse. Rightio then, unplug your machine and let's have at it. First thing that comes off is the plastic access cover. And this is more to pull out the hordes of lint nestling there more than anything else. The last thing you need is that to stay in the confines of the machine and maybe catch fire. And you're never going to have better access in doing that than during this fix. You can then use the plastic cover as a place to store all your bolts and pieces, which is really handy. Once that's done, we undo the bolts on this plastic cover, which allows us access to the metal cover underneath. Lifting up this metal cover then allows us access to the nut and washers holding the drum in place with the back panel of our dryer. We get this off with the 14mm socket, and you may find you need to hold the drum with your other hand just to help get it free. Take the rest of the bolts off the back panel, and yes, there's a few. Don't forget the screw down the bottom too, holding the cord in place. The only ones you won't need to remove are the ones holding the heating element in place, and I'll explain in just a sec. Now we gently move the panel out of the way. Now, because the element is still attached, as well as the wiring, what I've done here is rest it against something else. This still gives plenty of room to work on things without it getting in the way. Amazingly, when you get a proper look inside, you'll see that things really aren't that complicated at all. If the old belt is worn or snapped, fish it out and place a new one around the drum. Now, it's a grooved belt we're working with, and you'll want those grooves on the inside to get pulled along by the motor spindle. Swapping out the pulley is even easier as it just slides off. Pop the new one on and push down, giving it a quick spin-a-rooney to make sure it's going to go around nicely. Loop the new belt around the drum and the motor spindle and over the pulley, To make this job easier, you can remove the tension spring connected to the motor and the side of the dryer first, so the motor can be pulled down and you can easily get things lined up. Just don't forget to pop that spring back when you're done though. It'll only work for a few minutes without it if you don't, which I found out the hard way. Now, all going well, this is what things should look like when you spin the drum by hand. The action should be nice and smooth both ways. Now we're going to put the back panel on, tighten up that 14mm bolt at the drum hole, and just put a handful of bolts back in. Not all of them, just a few, so we can test things from the front, and if that doesn't work, then we can remove the back panel again easily enough to see what went wrong. But I think we've got it here. Okay, so the drum spins fine by hand from the inside, and I could feel the belt gripping it, which is great. Time for a real test. Random sock goes in, starts it up, and well, look at that. Drum is rolling just fine, no strange noises, no clunking sounds, heat coming through. This is a win. Time to put all the covers back on, put the bolts back in, don't forget that one screw down the bottom, and of course the plastic tunnel cover at the very end. Slot it back into place, job's done, time for that beer.